Okay, the recording is in progress. Okay, we are in Parshas Behar, on page 810, 811. Actually, before we go any further, I'm just going to get a little glass of water with your permission. Okay, so back in a minute. Mayim b'soson, as they say. Shavtem mayim b'soson. Anybody know if Mrs. Safran is back yet?
No,
She's supposed to be?
She's supposed to be, yeah.
Okay. We'll see. Hopefully she'll turn up. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam shehakol nihyo b'dvarav.
Amen. She always says that she might come today.
Okay. Yes, I heard that was a possibility indeed. Okay. So Parshas Behar. Now, as you know, probably, most years this Parsha is not separate.
Oh.
Only separate in a leap year. And of course, we are on a leap year. So many of the Parshas that are usually together, because we have an extra month, whether it's 4 or 5 Shabbosim, we need to have laning, yes? So during the year, these we have several sedras that are put together, yes, especially a lot in Vayikra. We have a few in Vayikra and in Bamidbar. And they are, so it's quite unusual that we have just this, normally it's Behar B'chu Kosai. That is the, that's the usual format. So Behar, now, of course, you will note right away that the Sedra starts Behar Sinai, the Posuk, Vaydaber Hashem on Behar Sinai. Now, it's interesting, although usually, of course, the Sedras are named by one name, but there are some Sedras that are named with 2 names. But what it seems interesting here is because Har Sinai, obviously Har Sinai means Mount Sinai. And that has a very, well, of course, Sinai has a very special property of being the mountain which Hashem chose to give the Torah. And we all know that it was because it was so humble, right? It presents itself as the humblest of mountains. So in other words, the emphasis really is on Sinai, not on Behar. So the question is, well, why are we starting a Sedra without even mentioning? We're just mentioning that it's a mountain. Now, a mountain represents sort of ego, if you like. It represents the heights. So we needed the Sinai, right, to say, oh, I'm not a big mountain, I'm a small mountain. And yet, when we call the Sedra, we're calling it just the name Behar. We don't even mention Sinai. Yeah. So I guess the question is why? Why would we mention Behar without mentioning Sinai, when Behar itself seemed to, on its own, would seem to be a little bit negative? It has a sort of a negative connotation. Yeah, you understand the question? Oh, hello. Hello. Good morning. Yes, we're on page 810, 811. Okay, come in.
Takes Mrs. up a while.
Oh, is that for okay, from friends. Okay, so she could, I guess you could come and sit here. If that's Shalom Aleichem, Mazel Tov, welcome. Hey, you want to come and sit around? Well, it's lovely to see you, whether you're here, whether you're there, whether you're everywhere. You're like Hashem. Hashem is here, Hashem is there, Hashem is everywhere. You first, one day you're in South Africa, the next you're in England, you know.
Well, we went to Johannesburg
Is there not enough water there?
Cape Town is the best.
Yeah, that's funny. Huh? Oh, I wish I'd bring some more.
It's a very difficult. You want? Yeah, please.
I guess I didn't put enough water.
Well, no, you did. It's a very difficult kettle. I don't know why you keep.
Okay, it's okay.
No, but you haven't got it.
Yeah, it's okay. No, it's okay. I'm gonna get it.
It's a bad idea. It's so difficult. Have you ever tried using it?
We have.
You find it difficult?
Yeah. Very heavy.
Well, I just put some more water up just in case.
Anyway, what made you buy such a heavy kettle? It's only when it's empty.
This is after we have come here to learn the Sedra.
Well,
Thank you.
to make life easier.
As I was,
I should try before.
okay. We try to make life easier.
Get started.
Well, we've already got started. We're just trying to resume. As soon as we're all sorted, we'll resume. Yes,
Oh, yes.
yes, she
He
is.
was here yesterday. I saw him, Charles.
Oh, Charlotte's here?
Yeah.
Oh, yes, okay.
No, he went back.
I see. Okay, that's impossible. Why don't you, do you want to sit opposite? You could sit opposite. You can look straight into my, well, I won't have to turn my head so much. You want to make it easier for me? Huh? Okay. Now, so the question is, why do we mention just the word Behar in the title and not Sinai? Right? Because Sinai represents humility, and surely we want to have humility mentioned if we're talking about, we just mentioned the idea of a mountain. A mountain represents elevation, ego, right? So the answer could be that when we serve Hashem, there's really two stages in serving Hashem. The first stage is we do need to have a little bit of a sense of self-abnegation towards our ego. We are supposed to feel a sense of humility. We always have that attitude. That is when we start to, because it is a sense of appreciation. How do we start the day off in the morning? Moda ani lefanecha. Moda, we're thanking. We have a sort of we don't, and when you wake up in the morning, the first thing you're thinking about is yourself, like, oh, how do I feel? I feel tired, I feel awful, I feel this, I feel that. That's the first thing. And then the first thing we're supposed to do as Jews is to defocus off yourself and say, Moda ani lefanecha, I'm alive, I'm actually alive. It's amazing, right? So the rest is, somebody once said, there's cream on the cake, right? You wake up in the morning, that's actually pretty amazing. It's not an achievement because you didn't do anything, but Hashem is giving us life again. So we say, when we start off the year with the festivals, what's the first festival that we have? Pesach. We just had it. That's the first festival. How do we celebrate Pesach? No matzah, no chometz. Chometz represents ego, represents rising up. Matzah, we have to flat. Bittul, humility. Yes? So when we're starting things out in Judaism, that's what you need. You need that humility. You need that, as they call it, as I mentioned before, self-abnegation. Great word, isn't it? Self-abnegation. But that is the first stage. But then there comes another stage where, okay, we get that. We've learned that lesson. We've learned the lesson of humility, self-abnegation. Great. But now, sometimes we have to assert ourselves as Jews. We have to be strong and assert ourselves and have a sense of elevation, a sense of pride. Okay? Here, that is the idea of Behar. You see, if you just start off with the Har, you start off with the mountain, you start off with that, that's no good, because your ego is going to get carried away. You'll get carried away with your ego, and you become a narcissist because it's all about you. Behar. If you start off with humility, then when a person realizes they do have to have a certain sense of self-assertiveness and asserting, not the self, asserting one's rights as a Jew, okay? One's rights as a Jew in this world. And of course, nowadays it's very important that we, the world is trying to really
Eat us up.
Yeah, beat us up, literally.
Eat us up.
Eat us up, beat us up, crush us, materially, physically, emotionally, diplomatically, psychologically, any way you could imagine. The Jews are really, they're throwing everything at us. Really, it's quite incredible. They're throwing everything at us. It is unbelievable. You see what is going on in the world. Wherever you look, the Jews are being attacked in every single way possible. The Jews, Israel, everywhere. And it's a multi-pronged battle, whether it's military, we're attacked by Iran, we're attacked by the United Nations, we're attacked by the media, we're attacked by various politicians, various enemies have not stopped attacking us since October 7th, right? It just doesn't end. It's incredible. So at this point in time, it's very important that we have to be like a Behar. We have to have that sense of self-worth, that sense of self-esteem, that sense of elevating as a Jew, right? As a that's what does the expression go? When the going gets tough,
Tough get going.
there you go. The tough get going. Very good. So this is the idea of Behar, that we're at stage 2 already. Yes, we've got the humility. We got that bit. Yeah, we worked that out. We got the self-abnegation. We got the knocking down of our ego. Yes. And now we have to move to a sense of pride, self-assertiveness, asserting our rights as Jews and as right as and we are, as it says, the expression goes, B'nai Melochim, Melochim, the sons of, or even the slaves of a king is like a king, right? So the sons, we are princes. So we're like Hashem, and we have to have that great self-confidence as Jews, confidence in Hashem. It's not your own confidence. It's not your own elevation. It's as representatives of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Okay? So this is why the Sedra, we call it Behar Sinai. Behar, without necessarily referencing the Sinai. Do you understand? We're talking about the second level, if you like, of serving Hashem. Okay? It's a bit like the difference between Pesach and Shavuos, really. Because Pesach, of course, we have to have matzah. Shavuos, you're supposed to actually bring chometz as as the sacrifice. There's certain loaves of chometz that you have to bring. Even though most of the sacrifices in the temple were matzah, had to be matzah. But on Shavuos,
Flour.
no, well, they're both made of matzah and chometz.
I don't know.
Matzah and chometz.
Like a pigeon or an animal.
No, but I'm talking about the meal offerings. The meal offerings, all the meal offerings, most of them were bought with different kinds of matzah. No.
No, because it said the real matzah was it here?
Oh, you're talking about lafa. All right.
It said this year, I heard that the real matzahs weren't the crackers we have now, that they were more like pita bread.
Well, that is what lafa is. Have you ever seen lafa?
Yeah.
So lafa is apparently what they say it was more like, but it doesn't matter really. No. The important thing, hold on a second. Hold your horses. We're not talking about here exactly what the matzah looked like, what the consistency is, what it felt like, No. We're not talking about that. There are many ways of making matzah. Right? We call it matzah. But when I say we call it matzah, we mean it's not chometz. That's all. Okay? I'm not saying it's this or that or the other. There are many different kinds. There were 5 different or 4 different kinds of matzah that they would actually make in the Beis HaMikdash. Different kinds, right? They were thicker, thinner, different, with oil, with this, with that, the other, right? So all I'm saying is that most of the meal offerings, if they would be offered up, they would be offered up as loaves of matzah, not chometz. Yes, okay, but Shavuos time, with the various animal sacrifices, there were 2 loaves of bread that we brought. They're called the shtei halechem. And they were dafka made of chometz. Okay, and the Mefarshim explained, because at that time chometz now becomes something positive, because it's not just we're not worried about the ego anymore. Pesach time, we were worried about the ego. You need to start off with a sense of humility. Yes, you start with a sense of, as we just spoke before, leave your ego out, right? That's why we're not normally supposed to eat before davening, right? Davening first Yom Tashem, then you can start involving yourself in the world more. Okay. Nowadays, people eat before davening not because of the davening, just because otherwise they're just too hungry even to daven. Okay. So, but that's a different story. Okay. So that is why that is the difference between because Shavuos already, we've already absorbed the concept of humility perfectly, and we've done it. We've refined ourselves throughout Sfiras HaOmer, and now we can move on. Any elevation there is not an egotistical, narcissistic one. It's a selfless one. It's based on being connected with Hashem. If you're connected with Hashem, then, if you are an emissary of Hashem, yes, if you're an emissary of Hashem, and you walk into somebody gives me a job and I have to go and you're an ambassador. You're an ambassador to a country. What do you walk in? You walk in, I'm the ambassador of
Well, if you don't like.
Let's not talk politics. If you're walking like this, ambassador, if you're walking like this, right, you're not respected, what are you? You're gonna walk in, you're ambassador. Walk in, I'm the ambassador, all right. Now who is it? Are you representing yourself? No, you're not walking in with your head up in a sense of pride because yourself, because you represent your country, that wherever you come from, right? So if we are representing Hashem, how much more so, infinitely more, the creator of heaven and earth. We are those ambassadors. So you lift with your head up, going proud. You're proud of who you are, right? That is what it means. Behar. You understand? And perhaps this is the, so I'm just by the way, since we're in the week and we're speaking about, we always try to speak about what goes on in the news, right? And we all know that, notwithstanding the fact that, the Jews are suffering tremendously at the hands of the enemies of the Jewish people. But sometimes, of course, we see some miracles. We see open miracles. And of course, we all saw that miracle this week, the beginning of the week, of the death of the Amalek of our time, of the Haman of our time, and his mate, right? And his mate with him, like two, Dumb and Dumber, Laurel and Hardy, whatever, the two twists. Yeah. Well, okay. His days are number 2. Okay. And sometimes you see this amazing thing, and everything's by divine providence. But we just, somebody mentioned that by divine providence it happened in, where did this accident happen? Where did the accident like that? Hashem made this all happen. Where did it happen? In a region on the border of Azerbaijan and Iran, right? And what was how would you describe the topography of where they mountainous? What's the Parsha? Behar. It happened on the mountain. Okay, so we see that when the time here is quite amazing, right? I would also point out, just by the way, that Yud Aleph, it happened on Yud Aleph Iyar. Iyar stands for the words. Well, actually, you have even Iyar, Ani Hashem Rofecha, Iyar. But also interesting, I just noticed now that you have Yud Aleph and Reish at the end, right? So Yud Aleph is interesting because Yud Aleph represents the forces of evil in the world. 10 represent, the Kabbalists speak about this. 10 represents Kedusha, holiness, the 10 Sfirot. Yes? The 10 Sfirot, those 10. Yud Aleph represents where the extra force of evil, the crown, is 11, which is why the spices in the Beis HaMikdash had 11. There were 11 spices in the Ketores, in the incense. There were 11, because that was used in order to refine, to rectify the forces of evil in the world. Right? So 11 has that power to rectify, refine, and in this case, Baruch Hashem, to destroy the forces of evil. Yeah, it was Yud Aleph. It was Yud Aleph Iyar. So you could say it's interesting. Yud Aleph Iyar. Interesting.
The whole thing is because the weather was bad.
Yes.
They couldn't immediately pin it on anyone.
Of course.
The weather was bad.
And the fog, everything. It was all bad weather.
Yeah, I know.
Yes. Well, okay, exactly.
That was a holiday.
Yeah.
It's amazing that they
Yeah.
have.
I told them don't blame Anne. I said don't blame Anne. Anne and Mrs. Suffolk had nothing to do with it. And I promised. They asked me. They said that it looks like Mrs. Bloom and Mrs. Suffolk, their hands are involved in this. I said no, definitely not.
Said, I mean, there was some kind of insinuation, but they actually haven't said it was Israel, which is really surprising. Some did at the beginning.
Something I said it was the United States.
No. Actually, funnily enough, there was. Oh, did you see? Did you? No. Did you see there was a funny? We thought there was a joke, but it actually was on French TV. There was some nudnik who got on the TV, and he said he's heard rumors that there was something to do with the Mossad, and that there was a chap involved whose name was Eli Copter.
Yes.
I thought it was a joke. I thought it's a big. Actually, you see it. You see. I can show you the cap, and he was saying it, and I don't know. It was just funny.
There's a new Shiur out there called
Helicopter. Yeah, absolutely. Yes, it's like yes, it's like the old like I was talking about Lady Blank. Yeah, you know about Lady Blank also, the very wealthy guy. You know about Lady Blank?
Mm.
This was a few years ago. This is when people used to, ask for a check. You would ask, well, who shall I make it out to? It was just Lady Blank. So I thought, who's this guy, Lady Blank? He must be a millionaire. Everybody's always writing his checks to Lady Blank. Anyway, okay. So let's move on. That's just to share with you just a few insights about the idea. And listen, Hashem should help that all the enemies of the Jewish people should be destroyed very, very soon in a way that only people will say, wow, this is Hashem. I mean, this is itself an incredible thing. The moment is incredible. To think that only a month ago, 5 weeks ago, these two Rishonim decided to attack Israel in the most deadly way possible.
Well, in a very public way.
In a very public, and a very tried to be as dangerous as possible. And it's unbelievable. And historically, within 5 weeks of them doing this, they're gone. They're both gone, dead, literally, forever, gone. Right? Now, if the world cannot see, I'm sure a lot of people will say, oh, that's interesting, because that's very unusual, historically speaking, that this should ever happen to a head of state, and they should be flying in the same plane. That was also daft, right? That was also stupid, right?
Where would they go?
They were coming home. There are 3 helicopters. They were coming home. They could have split them up in a different helicopter. Two of the helicopters, Eliezer and Eliyahu, they got back, right? But anyway, so it's an incredible thing. You remember also a few months ago in Turkey, there was this idiot got up in Parliament and started cursing the Jews, and right on the spot he had a heart attack, literally on the spot. You remember? On the spot, you see him. I mean, he's in front of the Turkish Parliament. He's cursing out the Jews, and all of a sudden, and he collapses on the stage. You can see it. It's on TV. It was on all the TV. It was on TV, right? And he didn't die there, but about maybe within the day, 12 hours later, he was dead. 24 hours later, he was dead. And so we and Hashem should continue with these incredible miracles. We are all, on behalf of everybody here, we're so grateful for these miracles. And we should sing and dance with joy, and we will, and we do. And we're very grateful. And please God, we should see more of it so that all the enemies should be taken care of in a where they get. Okay. Right. Now, okay. Yes. It wasn't my joke. Because I didn't tell a joke. I mean, there was nothing being said at the time, so you cannot blame my jokes. Some people are a little bit upset with my. Yes. What this week's what?
Do you still have water in there?
Yes.
No, the way to deal with this, by the way, is to breathe very slowly through your nose.
And to shut up.
Correct. Breathe very slowly through nose. No, really. My mother, Shah, always tell me this, and it used to work. Well, you feel like when you want to cough, but anyway. Okay, now let's talk a little bit about let's talk. We talk about in this week's Parsha, we talk about a certain slave. We talk about a slave. If you go to chapter 25:41, 2541. Right? Now, on page 820, you'll find
Oh, I see.
820.
Okay, 25.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's we're talking about here from verse 39. We're talking about a person who became poor and he got sold. He had to sell himself, right? And what happened was that he sold himself into slavery. Okay. Now the slavery in Judaism, of course, is not the same sort of thing as enslaving for a non-Jewish slave. It is far more benevolent. The person is not owned wholly. Yes, he's not owned wholly in terms of his body, like a regular slave, shall we say. So it is more benevolent. However, I'm sure you'll agree that the person is in a very rough situation when he's in a slave. In fact, it's interesting because this is the last. It's interesting. Why do we learn, just as a sort of a PS? Why do we learn about this? Parsha speaks about Shemitah. Starts off talking about Shemitah. You know what Shemitah is?
7 years.
The sabbatical year. Yeah, the 7th year, where you are not allowed to benefit financially from the produce of the land. You can benefit, you can eat it, you can use it. Everybody eats it, everybody use it, right? But you can't really sell it. If you sell it, you're getting you can't sell it at a profit, right? And you're not. So in Israel, it's sometimes a bit of a challenging situation. Does anybody need more hot water? By the way?
No,
We're okay. Yeah. Okay. So why is the law now? There's a principle here that we learned right at the beginning. Why is the idea of Shemitah? We start off with Shemitah right here, and we learn it at Har Sinai, at Mount Sinai. But Har Sinai, all the laws were given. All the laws were given. All the general things, all the detailed things, everything, right? So why are we highlighting that Har Sinai, we start off with Shemitah? Very interesting. Why Shemitah? What's Shemitah got to do with the price of cheese in relation to Mount Sinai? Because everything was given at Mount Sinai. But he was trying to tell you, just as the Shemitah laws were given at Mount Sinai, so all the laws were given at Mount Sinai. Now, why are we mentioning this here? The truth is, if you go through the Sedra, you'll see and this is learned right at the end of the Parsha, there's a gradual progression of certain things going on. And it starts off with the person selling part of their property, right? Now, a person sometimes he has to sell his land. He may have to sell, he gets poor. He needs to sell his land. Then he may have to even sell his home, right? Because he's so poor. Then he may have to sell his body. If you've got nothing left, you sell yourself. And then you could be selling to a Jew, and then you could be even selling yourself to a non-Jew who's worshipping idols. That's the lowest of the low, right? Why does this all start off? Why does a person have to start selling things? You know why? Torah tells us. Because some people, they don't like this idea of the 7th year not benefiting in the produce. Remember, most of the people in that time were farmers. 90%, maybe more. Everybody lived. They had their little plot of land. They had their what do they call? What are they? Allotment. Yes, they had their allotment. Now allotments are pretty small, right? But if everybody had a farm, and they would live on the produce. Now, obviously, but people sell this produce to that. They would sell to each other because you buy and sell, right? That's how the economy worked. That's how all the economies worked in the old days. It wasn't an industrial economy; it was an agrarian economy. So it was quite a test. Every 7th year, you can't sell your produce, and
you could eat it. Could you eat it?
Yes, I just said you could eat it. Of course, you can eat it. You can eat it. You can benefit from it. You can use it. You just can't sell it. You can't sell it for financial gain, right? It has to belong to everybody. It belongs to everybody. Everybody's land belongs to. It's a whole balagan. Everybody's land belongs to everybody. Sorry?
During Shemitah, if you eat something that's in, you have to save the peel. If you're in Israel, don't you have to say, do you have to do that then? Did they do that then? Save all the,
No, it says that it should not be disposed of in a way of bizoyon, in a way of disrespect. So yes, so some would say it wasn't just put in regular rubbish, they were put in a special bag or whatever and dispose of it, quote unquote, respectfully. But that means you can use it. Now you're talking about disposal of the remains.
yeah,
But the fruit itself or the produce
They were
was
allowed-
perfectly, oh sure, everyone's allowed to use it. Okay.
You're supposed to save up.
No, the problem is if you buy stuff from Shemitah, that's the problem. If you bought stuff from a shop that is Shemitah
yeah.
year, that is a problem
the
because
problem
you've
itself
paid
is
for
that-
it. You've paid for it. Do you understand? You paid for it.
right.
So if you paid for it, that's a problem because you're not supposed to pay for it. And not supposed to sell it to you. Well, that's a problem then. Why are you going to eat it? You can't eat it. Then you have to dispose of it also respectfully. Because you can't use it. Yes? You're only supposed to use it as a freebie. Right? So people, well, no, what they do is basically they would either bring in produce from abroad, or they have a certain thing in Israel we call heter mechira, right? This was a whole thing that was made a certain tool. There were several gedolim actually. There were several great gedolim who had this instrument of avoiding Shemitah by selling the land temporarily, a bit like mechiras chometz. Yes, you sell the chometz to the goy, so therefore it doesn't belong to you, right? Well, if it doesn't belong to you, then it's okay. So here, though, they sold it to the goy, and it was saying that if they sell it for the period of Shemitah, and then it could be used by Jews. Now, as I say, that was and that is still today an acceptable halachic. I don't want to say loophole because that sounds a bit, but a halachic tool, an instrument of avoiding that, just like Bechiras Chametz, right? We're not trying to get out of it. It's just that's what the rabbis developed. A lot of the Hasidic and the Haredi world do not subscribe to that heter, that leniency, and will only eat fruit from abroad. That is definitely not from Eretz Yisrael, which is why prices go up. Unfortunately, in Shemitah, ironically, the original idea was it would be free for everyone. Yes, everyone, so nobody would have to pay. The price wouldn't go up. But now, ironically, prices go up because the way our economy works is that everybody buys everything from shops. There's no free bartering system. Might be a nice idea if somebody could arrange that. Yes. Looks a bit almost communistic, everybody give like a commune, we'll put it all together, as the socialist slogan used to go from each according to his ability, to each according to his needs. Exactly. So you put in what you can, yes, you put your whatever ton of stuff in, and then you take out whatever you want. Of course, nowadays what you need. Problem is people take a little bit more than they need. It's like they go to a smorgasbord at a wedding or a buffet, it's like pile stuff on the plate because they're scared there's not going to be enough food left, right? People,
Well, people were hungry when you did that.
Hungrier.
Yeah, I have a relative. That
mean
he
poorer?
would go to a simcha and he would really eat. But I think this is like back in the times of depression and stuff. People were very hungry.
Yeah.
And they really went and
You remind me of this.
they did picnics.
Yes. Oh, Kathy. Yeah, Mona. Yes. You'd like to say something?
I was just going to say that in Norway, it's considered so unpolite to help yourself with any food that you're not going to eat. When we are in a dinner or we are in a restaurant or whatever, where we help ourselves to a buffet or serve ourselves at somebody's table and we leave something on the plate, it's so unpolite. We don't do that unless we want to insult somebody. And I hear that in UK, it's common. It's not a problem if you visit somebody or if you're in a restaurant or so on and you leave something on your plate. Is that right?
it's always considered correct to leave something on the plate.
Yes,
And I was
I think in
proud,
both exactly. Some say that it's derech eretz to leave a little bit of something on the plate. Different. I don't know. I don't know. They just remind me of the story about the chap who was complaining. He said, he says, oh, years ago, he says, I remember you could walk into a grocery with £2 and come out with a loaf of bread, butter, milk, eggs, and a whole pile of vegetables.
Yeah.
Nowadays, there's closed circuit TV everywhere. So, all right. The important thing is you get you understand what should have been in the Shemitah year. But so people had this thing where they wanted they wanted, it was a temptation. It's like going to work on Shabbos. People say, I'm going to lose my money if I don't work on Shabbos. It's my best day, my biggest day. I sell all my best clothes on all the Shabbos. So people, they don't want to lose out. And here you're missing out for a whole year you're missing out. So people would sometimes cheat and they would sell Shemitah stuff, produce. And he would use that money. So the Torah says, if you do that, you know what? You're going to end up being more needy than you thought. Right? And you're going to have to sell something. You're going to have to sell your land. And if you do tshuva, fine. If you don't do tshuva, you're going to have to sell your house. Sell your house. Oh, if you do tshuva, fine. If you don't, you're going to have to you're going to have to sell yourself. God forbid. And if you do tshuva, fine. If not, then you have to serve even the Gentile who's worshipping idols. That's the lowest a person could reach. Where does it all start from? From Shemitah. Shemitah says, what's the idea of Shemitah? That Hashem is boss. You are his servant. You keep his decrees, right? So if you keep Shemitah, you are his servant. Then you're not going to sell yourself into slavery to somebody else or something else. You won't be a slave. You're going to be a slave of something in this world. You'll either be a slave to power, you'll be a slave to money, you'll be a slave to substances, yes, including cigarettes or drugs or anything. You're a slave. Going to worship, you're going to worship something. So you may as well worship Hashem. You may as well worship because he's the true creator of heaven and earth, and be free to serve him. So this is why we mentioned this Shemitah by Har Sinai. Now, okay, but now just going back again to this poor chap, right? This poor chap, again, which page is it? Say 20, 40, 41. Now it says, that is, once he has redeemed himself, things improved, he shall return to his family, and to the property and the estate of his families he shall return. But 41, that verse 41. Okay, and if you see, look at Rashi here, it says, look at this. He should return to his family and resume the dignified status of his ancestors. Dignified. Now, interesting. So, and why do we use the word dignified? Because you see, it could be that sometimes people, they look at somebody who sold themselves into slavery with a sense of dismissal and contempt. That Jew sold himself into slavery, didn't he? And they will castigate him and they'll treat him. We say, no, this person deserves to be treated with respect. Do not denigrate him. He should have a dignified return to his property. Don't come down on him. So they ever asked an interesting question. Why do we discuss this fact that he should be dignified? He should go back to his family in a dignified, respectful way. Here, we had slavery about a person all the way back in Parsha Mishpatim, where he sold himself. He was sold by the Beth Din because he stole. And yet, we don't say there that he should, when he returns, he should return in a dignified way. Why don't we do it there? Why here? Only when he sells himself. Only when he sells himself. There's an interesting psychology here. When a person sells them, is sold by Beth Din, a person could imagine that because he stole, and it was open and obvious, that if he's done his time, he's paid his debt to society, as they say, yes. So a person who's paid their debt, okay, we leave them alone. They went to prison, they paid their debt. But a person who sold themselves because they were so poor, that's a different thing. People they don't really have the same Rahmanas. They thought, oh, Ashnara, Nebuch, you know. In other words, there's more temptation to look down on the person who sold themselves, because who says that they will have done tshuva anyway? Nobody knows if they're going to do tshuva. It's quite possible that they may still have the same sort of negative feelings as they had before. And therefore, the tendency would be not to give them such kavod, such respect in a dignified way. That's why we mention it over here as opposed to Parshas Mishpatim. Yeah, you understand what I'm saying? Yeah? Okay. Now let's talk a little bit about Sfiras HaOmer, shall we? Because Sfiras HaOmer, we are right in now. In fact, we're well over halfway now, right? 40th day, if you didn't count the Sphira. Yes, I think we're not for 30th. 30th. Sorry, 30th. Yes, we are 31. I think today. There's 30. Am I right? 30. We're 30 today. Correct. We're 30th today. That's right, because Sunday is the 30th. So you don't forget to count Sphira. So, you know, Sfiras HaOmer, we know that it's a minor period of mourning. What are we mourning? We're mourning the death of the students of Rabbi Akiva. 24,000.
This really completely throws me.
Oh, I think it throws all of us.
Honoring how great Rabbi Akiva was and how his wife had
Yes.
and how great he was.
Yes.
He's the one that loses 24,000 students.
We get 5 of the best.
I can't get my
Yeah, but that's not so much of a comfort. That's just showing you the greatness of Rabbi Akiva. He was able to pick himself up again and start off with the 5 Talmidim. So I think Mrs. Brindell's question still stands. You know, the fact there were 5 surviving doesn't really calm and comfort one that the 24,000 died.
Well,
and of course, the reason why they died was not because of Rabbi Akiva. It was in spite of Rabbi Akiva.
They disagreed with each other.
Well, this is it, you see. This is the problem. It wasn't that even if they disagreed. Be careful. Some people say they don't. You have to get clearly what the Talmud says. Some say they hated each other. Some don't. And say they disagreed with each other. No, it was very simple. It's very specific words. Like nohagu kavod zeh b'zeh. They didn't treat each other respectfully. Now, question. Rabbi Akiva, as you put, I'm just going to make your question even more strong.
Yes, strong.
Make it stronger. Rabbi Akiva was the one that taught that loving your fellow is a great principle in the Torah. And surely the students agreed. They're learning from their Rebbe. They would surely absorb that, live that, feel that. Yes? So how is that possible? How is it possible that these great, great people, and of course this is one of the reasons why they were punished, they were such great people, the students of Rabbi Akiva, unfortunately, in Judaism, when you are great, and you're truly great, and if you're a student of Rabbi Akiva, you're great, then you're judged on a bit of a different level. You're judged, your judgment scale goes up, unfortunately. Yes? The expression, the higher they go, the lower they fall. Yes? I mean, that sometimes refers to wicked people as well. Right? Especially if they go high up in a helicopter and fall. Yeah. But sorry. But when great people are judged on a much higher scale. So the question is, how is that possible? How could they? Did they have Avos Yisrael? Did they not have Avos Yisrael? What's going on here? How could they not treat each other respectfully? So here you have to come and understand. A beautiful sikh from the Rebbe explains that there's a difference between love and respect. You can love people we love people in our family. Oh, I love my kids, I love my parents, I love my siblings, I love my wife, I love my husband, I love my this. Everybody loves. We love, but we don't always necessarily like them, do we? We don't necessarily like the way they do things. We do this, but even let's assume that we do. Let's have a feeling of love. Feeling of love. Well, where do you have most fights? Let's say sitting down. It's quite often a family where you got a family, you got the kids, and everybody's yelling and fighting. Does that mean they don't love each other? No, it's the whole point. They do love each other. But you see, loving implies being completely one with the other person. You're being connected, right? Now, for instance, if I love somebody and I have a particular view of understanding something, I love them and I really care about them. I want to share with them the truth as I see it. Now, I see my truth from my perspective. And if the other person does not really appreciate, does not understand, and in fact, they come up with an opposing view, then I'm going to have to try just a bit harder to get them to understand, because I love them so much, I care about them. If I didn't care about them, I wouldn't want them to, I'm not interested in them listening to me. But I do care about them. I love them. So I need to share them the greatness of the truth that I appreciate. Now, the problem is that the other person feels exactly the same way. He loves you so much that he wants you to understand the truth of his perspective. And since everybody is different and everybody has a slightly different way of understanding and appreciating, and all the views, from each person's perspective is true and right. And therefore, you can love somebody to the point where, well, I must share. I have to get you to get it. If you don't. So in England, we have this amazing thing. They developed this great, not very, some good things came out of the British Empire, but a good line. I love that. It's a British line, I think. We can agree to disagree. Let us agree to disagree. Well, if people actually were to hold that, that'd be fantastic. The problem is that students of Rabbi Akiva did not have that respect. Respect is from a sense of distance, separation. I have to respect that you are not me. You have a different way of looking at things. And we may have differences. And I have to look at you and we can agree to disagree. That is the respect. So in other words, they had plenty of Avos Yisrael. And so you could say they may have had too much of it. Not too much of it. You can have too much of it. But they didn't temper it with the respect for the other person. They didn't give respect to them. That was the problem. And when you're on a very high level, so they did take Rabbi Akiva's teachings very seriously. But they didn't take the other seriously. Hey, come on. You may love the other person. You may want him to see it from your point of view. But, there comes a limit where, you have to just pull back a bit. Don't love him so much. You're going to eat him up. You're going to swallow him up alive, right? Somebody once said, somebody expressed this, I'm really easy to get along with, as long as you worship me. I'm not so bad to get along with, as long as you completely subjugate. And people like to swallow other people up. You must see things from my point of view. I love you so much. And if not, you are an absolute idiot. You're crazy. You're wrong. How could you not see it from my point of view? Right? And we eat each other. Some people, they just eat each other alive. That's in the Pirkei Avos as well, which on Hashgacha we're reading during Seras Ha'omer. So people have to say, look, yes, you may love and you may care about the person, but you know what? If they don't hold from that, you can be tolerant to the point where you say, look, sure, let's agree to disagree. What were you saying?
Like what happened in Gaza, and the Jewish people reacted by davening, by men going to war, by taking on different mitzvahs. Probably in the times of Rabbi Akiva, they tried to do something to stop it, but why didn't it work? Until Lag BaOmer. I don't quite.
Well, your question here is how in the world did it happen?
How did it continue for so
First of
long?
all, you have to understand. First of all, you have to understand a very important point. that you have to understand, Smindel, that the world was so different from what it is today. We cannot imagine a world. We can't even imagine a world without WhatsApp, without emails.
Well, I can't.
No. I'm older as well.
Remember whatever.
No. I'm not saying we can't remember. I didn't say we can't remember. I remember what it was like without. I'm saying something else. I'm saying now we are living in a world where we're so into communication, we're so into understanding and hearing and knowing what's going on everywhere in the world all the time, right? We cannot imagine a world unlike that. We can't imagine like going back to, right? Now, even when you were younger and you were younger, we were younger, when we were all younger, we still had phones. We still had, yes, we still had TV, radio, there was still satellites.
Yeah,
there
but
was
it's
communication.
Just
Let me explain. Let me try and finish what you haven't heard what I said yet.
Yeah.
I'm trying to explain that people lived in a very isolated way, communities. So people perhaps they didn't know what was going on.
Now we know 24 people.
No. What I'm trying to say is exactly. It could be that people did not know what was happening. Remember, Rabbi Kiva they were living after the destruction of the temple. They had already had the Behar catastrophe, right? The temple catastrophe of the destruction temple. So diaspora, dispersal. Then they had Behar 70 years later, which Rabbi Kiva was involved in, right? You had Bar Kokhba, the revolt. Also, terrible destruction going on, right? Because of that, okay? And then you have the students now. So the whole place, it was a much different, it was very hard, I think, probably, physically to live, and the communication and what was going on, what was happening. It wasn't like they turned on the radio. Oh, another 4,000 died today. Another 500 died today, and everybody's all discussing about it. What can we do? What can we do? What can we do? No, it could be that nobody realized that this was in the middle of it. They might not have even known what was going on, but only was after realized. Do you know what happened? Do you know what happened? People dying here. There were thousands of small settlements, by the way. It wasn't like nowadays the bigger settlements. There were much smaller settlements. So people were much more dispersed, not connected in any way, shape, or form. And only perhaps afterwards it became clear that there had just been a terrible catastrophe. And that was it. There's nothing to do because it was done. And it finished like Omer. I'm only suggesting this. I haven't seen this written anywhere. I'm just trying to answer your question.
When I was a lot younger, besides loving yourself and people tried to force people. They thought that loving themselves meaning make them keep Shabbos, make them keep Parsha, make them keep them. The Rebbe pointed out the loving yourself means if they lack something in physical, get it for them. If they lack something spiritual, it doesn't mean force them to do what you think they should do. But I think until recently, people who talk about Kiruv, they wanted people to change, and it wasn't a true friendship. The Rebbe's asked us to be friend people, right, and to be their friend, not to force them to do what.
Yeah. But you see, that is it correct. And
So
because what was going on there was not there was two different worlds. You're talking about Ahavas Yisrael as an expression of Kiruv, right? Of course, that defines our generation. Ahavas Yisrael, Kiruv defines our generation. That generation, it wasn't about Kiruv. There's no Kiruv. It was everybody was basically from religious over there. It was about understanding Torah. It was about understanding, about appreciating, understanding the nuances, the halachic, the ins, the outs of halacha, of the Gemara, of the Torah, of the Mishnah. Yes, it wasn't about Kiruv, right? And these were the intellectual discussions of the giants. Okay, now the Talmud says, is there conflict when there's Torah study? Yes, there's conflict. But the point is, you start out as friends, you agree to disagree, you argue from the point of view of the concept. It doesn't become personal. It shouldn't become so personal. If it becomes personal, forget it, you lost the plot. You've lost the plot. So there it seems that what happened, that it became too personal, that people took it personally because they took it so seriously to persuade somebody of their own, of how their thinking was, that they lost track, they lost the plot, and they thought, okay, I have to really, and they forgot about this discipline of being respectful to people, right? You know, you got to be respectful. I mean, even in Parliament, you know, you start off the honourable gentleman, you know, is before you call him a name. You call him an honourable gentleman. You know, the honourable gentleman from Whitney is a, you know, whatever. But you know, there's a certain English politeness. But you know what? We can learn from that. You know, I'm not saying you should call people, you know, honourable and then insult them. But I'm just saying, there is an important point and lesson to be learned about that. And look, it's a difficult. I mean, staggering to think that he lost all his Talmudim.
Yeah.
Especially when he sacrificed so much. And his wife sacrificed even more because she sent him to learn. And he learned 12,000 students. Then he got another 12,000, and they all went because they missed that point. And it's a hard lesson to learn. It's a very hard lesson to learn. And it is amazing that the numbers are staggering, because to think that so many great people, we are like, you know, in absolute devastation at the fact that 1,200 people were murdered, right? You know, we can't cope with it. You know, it's driving us completely bonkers, which is just the way it happened.
Yeah.
It was so incredibly traumatic and so evil and so barbaric, right? What happened? But the numbers, do you know what I'm saying? It's like 5% of that plague. Yes. So you know, it was a devastating situation, and that's why, you know, we still perhaps haven't maybe learned the lesson yet. Well, I guess when Mashiach comes, as we know.
So by this side you survived.
From Shiur was one of
Yes, there were 5 remaining scholars. Yeah.
When we used to say love your neighbour as yourself, the rebels made it quite clear, care about
Neighbor doesn't mean your next door neighbor. Neighbor means your fellow and fellow Jews.
I sent somebody to
Yes,
you for the statement, right? I told her twice that you can't cut up chickens from Sainsbury's, but it's not my job. I'm supposed to be her friend, so we go and visit as a friend, and you're not going to change her. So it doesn't mean I'm not going to be your friend because you won't listen. No, you can be friends with people because you have to care about them.
I've been trying to change you for years.
Expected, I know.
Yeah, but I gave up. I thought,
What's it called?
lip service. Oh yes.
Yeah.
It's like the chap who said, you know, my wife. I actually bought my wife some that what's it called what's that
Glue.
The glue. What's it called?
Super glue.
No, the
Lips.
No, the glue that looks like a lipstick, a glue stick.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So he said. So the guy says, "Yeah, I accidentally bought my wife some glue stick instead of lipstick. She hasn't spoken to me since."
So Rabbi, I remember
Send this recording to Faggy.
Yeah.
All right. Where are we holding in terms of time? I don't know what time it is. Oh my goodness, we're past the time. Oh my goodness. Doesn't time fly when we're having fun? Well, we're ending on a good note that we should have Ahavas Yisrael, the respect, not just Ava, respect. You see, Ava and Yira is important. Honor your parents. Interesting. It says fear your parents and respect your parents. It doesn't say love your parents. Interesting, isn't it? You don't have to love your parents. I mean, first of all, you could say, well, you don't need to tell a kid to love his parents because he naturally does. But yes or no, you're not even debatable. But there's no mitzvah to actually love. There's a mitzvah to love. Well, actually, as your fellow Jew, I guess you could say, because your parents are also your fellows, so you should love them. But the important thing is also respect them, give them the kavod, agree to disagree, and that way, you know, Mashiach will come much quicker, Mir Hashem, and take care of all the enemies of the Jewish people. And if you disagree with me, please just do it respectfully. Thank you.
don't want to hear this, but I'm your mother, so I have to tell you.
That's it. That's always a good
So,
good way of entry. You might not like to hear this. However, as your mother, I have to tell you, yes, I think that's very good.
all right. That's different.
Oh, a mother-in-law. Mm.
Thank
Okay.
you very much. That was very
Thank you. Yes. Have a lovely rest of the week of Shabbos, and please God, we'll see you next week. You're welcome.
Yes,
Cultive everybody.
Thank
Okay.
you.
All the best.
Yeah, yeah,
Very
yeah.
well.
All
So
the
when
best.
we met, like the